Welcome to Coalesce. I'm Casey Davis. I'll be here representing kind of a story for you guys, tell you a journey that our team has gone through as we went from scrappy startup to through acquisition, needed to mature quite a bit and modernize our data stack in the process. So I'll be using this theme of Everest throughout the presentation today and kind of taking you along this journey with us as we went kind of from revisioning our data strategy and our approach. We really just had to rewrite how we were approaching data. The strategy was something we held on to, but the approach really shifted for us. And I hope to give you guys some beta, some of that nuggets to take away that were really relevant for our team as we kind of went through this journey. So I'll take you through this base camp, help you understand the context of the problem that we were facing, tell you about the previous state, the old approach that we had been taking, and some of the pitfalls that we came across. Then how we shifted from that and geared up for this new approach and the planning that took place. And then finally, the business outcomes, right? Like how did we add value to the business when we reached that summit? And then hopefully there's more, talking about that beta that I was referring to and really getting more into like what's next for us. And then we'll sit around the campfire and do some Q&A. So, all right. So, I'm Casey Davis. I've been with Ericsson Enterprise Wireless Solutions for 4 years now. I am the manager on our central data team and data engineering and analytics manager. We being Cradlepoint were acquired by Ericsson 4 years ago. In fact, when I was interviewing for the position, they had just internally announced this acquisition that was taking place. Cradlepoint is a strategic investment by Ericsson to get into enterprise. Really, we offer both a product and software as a service to managed networks, really focusing on IoT, branch, continuity, mobile, and private cellular connectivity. And we were very much a scrappy startup. I was employee like 600 right at the start of this acquisition, and we are now 1,700. So we were a growth company going 25-30% year over year, and had invested heavily in applications for analytic purposes. So we had strong data culture, which is really positive. But again, we're a very small, scrappy startup. Just so you guys know, Ericsson is a Swedish company, publicly traded, and they are a 100,000 employee company. So to go from 600 to over 100,000 employees was a significant change, and is an important context for you to understand what we were really grappling with 4 years ago. And this central team that I joined was a hybrid hub and spoke. So yeah, we're a platform team. We're enabling other spokes, other data teams in different functional areas. And then when functional areas didn't have their own data teams, we contribute to insight for those. So that's that hybrid approach. So we had this, if I go back about 3 years ago, this idea of how we were really going to modernize our platform felt like climbing Everest. So I'm going to have you guys imagine with me that you're a guiding company, and you've been guiding people through mountains and bringing them, and now you want to have a client pool to take them up Everest, right? Very popular thing to do. A lot of people are doing it these days. And as you might know, if you've done any research about Everest, more recently, it's full of traffic jams, okay? And you really have like a limited number of resources that are these experts. And it's because there's just so many more people, the demand is just so much higher. And it's also really competitive. So you have a lot of these different outfitters out there, and they're promising really big, and they're trying to get everyone to the summit if you possibly can. And it's creating also even more competition and a change in culture that's relatable also to this story. And you have some frustrated loyal customers potentially who've not been able to summit, or they've been with you in the past. Like, how does that translate to like a data team? Okay, well, we're a very small data team. And so that bottleneck was our team. We hired 600 people in a year, and our team saw this approach not only from an increase of demand, we have more stakeholders that we're working with, asking more of our team, but this hub and spoke model is really starting to grow where our team wasn't. So you have enablement increasing more and more for these other teams. There was not a aligned strategy that was driving this, and that's also creating a lot of expense inflation, siloed decision-making, lack of standards that ran across the company. And it was starting to erode trust, not only because of the maintenance of the data required quite a bit of tuning to keep the trust alive, but also trust in that we would deliver, I think, as a team. The SLAs and the backlog were just growing and growing and growing. And so we were starting to erode trust from a quality perspective as well as like a partner for the different businesses. So again, that was, I'll go back. I guess the idea is not only did we restore trust, but we also were able to save $500,000 a year in doing so. So the idea is, let's figure out how do we do that, okay? More context on the way we used to work. Okay, so we had a moderately modern data stack. You'll see some, Fivetran, Snowflake. We had Alteryx server, Tableau server. We were self-hosted, a different team was self-hosting ThoughtSpot, I believe at the time. We were not involved there, but you can see that there's some overlap and redundancies, and there's a lot of self-hosted nature. We're a small team, so we have a lot of challenge from complexity perspective, and we're also seeing a lot of performance challenges. Our team is really trying to be SaaS first. We don't have the resources to maintain infrastructure, and so a lot of the time spent managing this platform was infrastructure, upgrades, and just time spent not adding value back to the business. And so when we look at this from like a out-of-shape perspective, it was really, we had pretty complex Alteryx workflows that were running stored procedures, and they were running on top of layers and layers of views, on tops of views, on tops of views, without any kind of DAG, without any kind of lineage to kind of help you uncover what that might be like. And so that complexity was very challenging to work with internally. And I would say the idea was that we had started to find a lot of value for our business by the way we were starting to develop more of a warehousing strategy and using single sources of truth and building out well-organized data model that could serve a bunch of different use cases. So we started to kind of work with this. Really, the idea was we wanted to have single source of truth where we can have quality governed data assets really as products that then can be used by all different parts of the business, and we're just really managing everything from a single source of truth, and you can have downstream versions of the truth from that for the business requirements that are more specific. We knew that we wanted to be SaaS first, and that we wanted modularity. That was gonna be very important. And really, the crux for like what we were attempting at this time, we were able to create that modularity even with the views on tops of views, but it was very complicated to work through. Also, that observability and being able to kind of monitor these pipelines and manage broken pipelines was very challenging for us. Orchestrating was also a big part of what we were needing, and more transparency. And also, we needed a place for documentation. We needed self-service. We didn't want to just be the guy or the team that just knew this stuff and could answer those questions. It should be more self-service, and there should be a catalog solution to this. So we start to gear up. We say we need to go kind of tweak our approach and figure out, can we make this strategy work? How would we do it? And so we started using dbt on our platform. Guys, can I get the speaker notes up on here? I'm going blind right now. Thanks, I got it now. Appreciate it. Okay, so again, the data strategy, modularity is gonna be very important for us to be able to build these kind of building blocks, little Lego pieces of code if we could. We were gonna be star schema. Really, we're just kind of falling back to like very old approaches that were developed in the 80s and 90s, and we wanna be able to capitalize on that and do that through that bronze, silver, gold medallion architecture. So we knew that was kind of what we wanted to do, and so we found dbt and the guidebook, this idea of software development best practices really helping us understand that this approach that we could take could easily do the CI/CD, version-controlled, kind of dry programming principles, all very easy to manage in a single platform. And it has my name on the author there, thanks AI. It really should say Fishtown Analytics or DBT or Tristan and all of those that developed that and inspired us to really use these best practices and help us understand that we can be software developers almost. And the biggest part for us in this hub and spoke approach, though, is we needed coordination. There's some, maybe not formal governance program that needs to be there, but there needs to be a way to bring people back together and operationalize this so that it's cross-functional for everybody. So there's a standard that needs to be set, so it's scalable and future-proofed, but also documented in a way that others can help contribute to it and reduce that development time. And it needs to be built securely and also continue to evolve the data culture. That was really important for us. So we buy our tool, our pickaxe, to help us climb Mount Everest. This is thanks ChatGPT for this DBT pickaxe. We're going to get there. So we did a proof of concept. Again, this is 3 years ago. We used Core. We took some of these jobs, these very complex Alteryx workflows we had from 4 hours down to 3.5 minutes. We reduced the code by 3.5 times, and everyone just felt better about it, too. It was just cleaner to read, compiled to SQL, so it's a little more accessible. And so our stakeholders were also pretty happy with what we were doing there, too. They were impressed with the maturity that we had kind of introduced into our approach. And so we say, OK, well, we need to scale this. And at the time, we're really faced with becoming a material impact to the analysts within Ericsson. Cradlepoint, this acquired company for a strategic investment to get into enterprise, was included in the quarterly reports, and the analysts started really latching on to this. So we knew we needed to have something that was going to be secure and had this idea that we could scale with it. So role-based access controls are really important for us, and also that idea of how we can scale with it with the data mesh architecture. The catalog capabilities and the documentation being there is really important for our end users. And I think that one of the biggest things too is we saw DBT Labs as a partner for us, and they really helped us take that idea that we had and really figure out how to pour gas on it. So here we now have all of our tools acquired. We have this modern data stack, and it's time to climb and really scale with this. So the approach that we took here was really kind of just using best practices. And we built out something that was pretty unique. We built a utility for source creation. This is something that is totally being reimagined now with MCP servers. But the idea is that when we're building in that bronze layer, it's actually kind of the crux of this, I think, is getting the right data in there and documented well. And also being able to just speed up that process was really important. And the use of macros to more downstream in that medallion architecture became very important. And then the orchestration was really fast for us. We just wanted to be able to release quickly. So we have a very simple branching strategy with CI/CD pipelines. And we're triggering most of our transformations from Fivetran jobs. And now this is something that we can allow other functional areas to contribute to outside of our data team. And we have not only these standards that are enforced through pull requests, but we also have documentation on how to help facilitate that. And again, all of that is being reimagined now with AI. And I think the biggest thing for us too, I think some of you came in here to understand how Sarbanes-Oxley came to be a factor here. This is all about change management controls, and access management is a big part of that. So we can dive a little bit deeper. We also did this Jira integration to our GitLab repository that really helped facilitate kind of a single pane of glass for non-technical people who just needed to be able to see the kinds of changes that we were doing. It also just kind of helped facilitate a really smooth process for us. That was something that helped quite a bit in our approach. And so let's talk more about the impact that we have. This is a quote that I asked a stakeholder we work with to just come up with some stuff, and it's been great. We've been able to take that one model that we start with from proof of value, and now we have 20 of these models, and we have a lot of different executive level reporting that comes off of this, and all of our key KPIs for being a SaaS company are automated through dbt. So, here we are. It's a beautiful summit, right? So what was the value? We were able to save $475,000. A large majority of that was direct replacement of tools, and some of it was, well, because we had done all that transformation, not in the visualization layers, but more in Snowflake, being able to change out a visualization tool became very easy. So we consolidated down into one tool, saving us quite a bit of money as well. And it was all SaaS first. So we're not as labor intensive on the administrative front. We're more oriented towards driving insight. And that's really what it comes down to in analytics. I think we're all about just optimizing time to insight. And so that was something that really helped our throughput and our backlog. Then came the idea that we would create a portal, essentially a dashboarding portal for our partners and distributors to go to. And originally, the idea was going to be, we'll get our CRM and our ERP and our LMS systems, and we'll integrate it, and we'll do all this transformation inside of that external tool. And then we jumped in and said, no, we have all of that data in Snowflake. We already have trusted assets that we're using internally. We'll just use that for external analytics. So now we have parity, and we're doing this with external analytics. And that just took us a month and a half. We just did a quick little dbt mesh project downstream of that. We enforced metadata changes through contracts. We used the documentation as like the API hub for this vendor to just grab our data from. And we took that architecture and simplified it down to just one integration with Snowflake, all built from data that we had already grown trust with internally. And so from a SOX compliance perspective, there's a bunch of different IT general controls. So from a change management perspective, we're enforcing change management and complying with that change management program that we have through the pull request process. And also, we were able to leverage the dbt connector in Fivetran to pull all this data into Snowflake and automate the audit part of it, so that way we can see all the changes that are impacted there, build Snowflake queries to just check what's going on in dbt. And we have SCIM and SAML to enforce access management controls. So a lot of the controls that we would do on a more monthly basis are fully automated and really very audit ready. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too was some of the beta that's in climbing technique, like words. It's like, here's a suggestion for you. And as I was writing this in March, it made total sense. And fast forward 6 months later, and hearing what's happening with MCP servers and meeting people who are doing real things at scale with this might not hit the same as I had planned, okay? But I can tell you what we did and where we're going next, and then we'll have a lot of time for Q&A, because I'm flying through this. So, okay, so really the idea for what we did that was successful was, the idea of setting your anchors early, understand what the standards are, and enforce that through pull requests. Putting a human in the process is really important there to enforce standards as you bring in other practitioners into the project. And also being a guide for them. You just have to be ready to lead them through this. And that was important for me, just from an instruction perspective, to take the fear out of this new tool that they can use and really just help understand how easy it really can be. And so document that, right? Like help others with that. And I would say now that we're in October, not in March, you would prompt engineer all of this work to be done with MCP servers too, right? And you would put them in that process as well to help them contribute to it. But it's a lot more prompt engineering these days, okay? Yeah, and then I would say, from a do not repeat yourself principle here is figure out what those macros need to be. For us, we built out a number of macros that are used across many projects. GitLab built a bunch of these, and we actually leveraged what the GitLab data team had done. Check out the simple CTE macro if you haven't seen it. It's a really clean way to start any model that you build. That one's really important for us. And I think keeping it clean is really important too. So, fixing linting violations is really important for us. Part of our standards, the pull request process. It just keeps it easier to pick up where someone left off as well. And again, that source utility that I was referring to, again, this is all reimagined with an MCP server, but for us, before that, we just essentially scan the information schema and grab all the metadata. We do simple transformations there to set data types, and we can use natural language processing to kind of re-alias certain fields so it's a little bit more user-friendly. And that was something that was really helpful. I think we save ourselves like 30x the time to just then create some bronze layer. It's really nice, it's always consistent, and it helps enforce those standards. And then, yeah, I would say you have to reimagine what your next problem is going to be. So we can solve this problem, and then what's the next one? When we were looking at this, we always receive some very specific business requirements that are oftentimes vague, and we unpack them. But the most important thing is that we abstract this entity relational diagram essentially from a request and imagine it as a star schema. And I think that's really kind of helped generalize some of the work that we do and create that single source of truth that creates that repeatability then downstream, and it can be used for, call it 95% of the use cases of questions that can be answered in a similar format. So that was a big part for us in kind of looking ahead and building out something that's really scalable. So you're receiving a request and you're not just delivering on that request. You're really just trying to imagine, what is this generically? Do I already have data for this? And oftentimes, because we built with modularity, we could just pick up and quickly just finish a lot of the work and reuse a lot of the dimensions and preps that we already had. So it's been something that, again, in March, this is my suggestion. And today, we want to prompt engineer this with MCP servers. That's really how I think this scales better. So high five, there's our beta for you. Future expeditions, no, we're not going to Chile. I've always wanted to, but I want to solve the self-service analytics challenge that I think we've all been trying to understand. How can we take our small data teams and really enable the business to answer their own questions? Whether it's what's this data and what does it mean, versus you can create your own insight. And so that's where we see we're going. We're playing around with the Cortex suite now and finding some pretty promising things. But also from a self-service perspective of, we have very non-technical business analysts making requests of our team who don't know how to write SQL yet. And learning that from their perspective, it seems overwhelming. And we're like, no, it's fine, it's easy. So Canvas as an option for them is something that really excites me. Very graphical, drag and drop, very much like Alteryx, except it has an integration with Git. It compiles to SQL, and it has Copilot in it. So it's very nice to kind of get started, and we're actually using that already this week, in fact. So, and then, more with Fusion and MCP server. So this concept that we've talked about that I told you was like, we saved almost $500,000 a year. We're very cost conscious. And so state-aware orchestration is something we're really excited about. Our DAG is quite complex in one of our large monorepos. And we build from Fivetran these models upstream and downstream from this one big table. There's so much redundancy in that process. We're spending a ton in compute and with DBT model builds. And so really the only way to solve that problem is through state. And we're really excited to be taking that. And we've taken Fusion in some dev environments, and we're looking forward to force that in all of our environments for our large monorepo. And really, because of that, then excited about the efficiency gains that we can have from a developer experience and that throughput. I think really that it's going to augment where we go from here. So super excited. This stuff actually still sticks today, and something we're really excited to partner with others out there and learn from you guys this week. So at that point, I'll kind of open it up, sit around the campfire with you guys, and ask some questions if anyone had any. Yeah, I saw your hand go up first.
How long did this take, start to finish?
Good question. How long did it take, start to finish? We started that proof of value with one model, and that took us a couple of months to figure out what those standards were. Today, fast forward like 3 years later, from proof of concept to now, we have 20 of those. So, and we did that with, I'd say, 4 people really contributing to that. So if that kind of helps you understand the scale and time frame that it took. And also, that whole time was very disruptive too, right? I think it could have been faster had we not said, we're going to get rid of all your BI tools. You're going to be SOX compliant. So there were some things that we had to do along the way as well that extended that time frame. Other questions? Next to him, yeah.
How long did you spend on code before eventually?
I saw that. Well, first of all, I wanted to believe that DBT would be something that would make sense, and I wanted to contribute to that, but in a way that we could. We're a very small team, so we didn't want to manage a lot of infrastructure. We wanted that startup to be really easy. And so, like I was saying earlier, the catalog solution, orchestration, and the web IDE kind of just made it really easy for us. That and all the role-based access controls from a SOX perspective. So we were proof of concept straight into cloud. So we did that one and then used that as an example to purchase cloud.
I have a follow-up on the SOX as well. The SOX compliance checks that you have, did you also have to deal with any of the DBT? Oh, thank you. For the SOX compliance checks that you have, did you have to deal with any of the DBT models that you built to see, on, let's say, if I have a model that was built which needs to be a SOX compliant because it was handling some SOX compliant data, how did you handle those if you have any?
We tag them.
Just tag them as SOX?
We're tagging them right now, and whether that's the best approach or not. I think one of the things that we're really trying to do is take our finance team and give them their own project. It's going to have to be a bi-directional kind of project lineage where it's going to start in their area. And so some of those major transformations that are taking place are going to be owned in a separate isolated project. So then that project is the thing that's in scope, right? Downstream of that then is just kind of a consumption of that. So that's one of the tactics that we're shooting for right now. Okay. Yes?
People are really attached to their tools.
Yeah.
If you went, I'm going to take all your BI tools, Alteryx and whatnot. What were the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them? Did you have executive backing in your endeavors?
So the start of the question was, people love their tools, right? And
Their
so
old,
what's that
I would say
change
legacy
management like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to speak on the Alteryx front specifically, our FP&A team loves it, right? Because it's so easy for them. But they saw that it had some complexity challenges and it wasn't scalable for them as well. So that was a harder fought battle, I would say. The visualization front, people just didn't get a choice because Ericsson is going to charge us anyways in the larger corporate environment for a Microsoft license that includes Power BI. And we said, hey, we're trying to cut cost here. We need to consolidate as well instead of doing a riff. So I think people understood that and made sense of it. But yeah, there's definitely some change management and hand-holding that went along with it. But again, the saving grace was shift left. Our transformations should be done in the data lake, right? And because we had done that, there was easy, I say easy because I wasn't involved as much, but easier switch out because of that. Less transformation that was really tool specific. So. Over there.
What were your issues with ThoughtSpot? how did you solve them, and what is your BI tool right now?
The issue was that it was decided in a silo for a very specific functional area, serving a short list of users. And so from a cost to user ratio, it's very expensive. And so that was a big part of it. And they wanted to reduce expense. And we had the data models already developed. So we could then just contribute to it. And then they just switched to a visualization tool. So it wasn't a feature decision. It was really around a cost.
What's your tool right now?
The stack, your
Yeah.
modern stack with Power BI.
Okay, Power
Yeah.
BI. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I had a question about access control. I
Yeah.
know you mentioned that you manage RBAC and dbt Cloud. Are there any other tools that you use to also manage access control?
Yeah, so we're big Microsoft. Entra ID is our identity provider. So we're doing SCIM and SAML enforcement through that. There's also an internal tool by Ericsson's central IT organization that manages kind of the automation of access provisioning and requests. So you can request access to this group, essentially, and then it manages the recertification and approval process for us. So when we do our monthly review of new users, we're just pulling a report and comparing it to the new users in dbt to say, hey, look, we still have these controls in place. And it's all SCIM and SAML. So it's just delayed a little bit from a couple different jobs that then write back to dbt. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course.
Just one more.
Okay, last one, and then I'll be here. You guys can ask me questions too.
Hi, with the SOX compliance, how do you handle late arriving data or facts? We do this weird little freeze of tables, so just wondering how you handle that type of thing.
Yeah, right now, maybe the scope isn't as complex, so our number one model is around orders, right? And they can't be late arriving if they're based on revenue and invoicing. So we haven't had to manage it so much. However, probably our most challenging model to work with is incremental as well. And it's incremental, and we use variables that are defined through orchestration. So we have a start and end date, and the finance team will go and close a period by running an incremental model. They could rerun that if they needed to, but they know to be very cautious to do so, that they'd be restating the past. So that's kind of how we manage that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's how we're basically we just
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, snapshotting didn't work for us. It was theorized, but it's just going to create too much complexity for us. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate, if you want, my QR code for LinkedIn if you guys want to follow up with me later. Try to get back to the DMs. So we'll see. Thank you guys very much.